So I basically asked the tarot about just spiritual paths in general. And the question is, okay, spiritual path, what is your deal? What do you want? You know, what is necessary here? So the cards that come out, first the base card is the Seven of Pentacles. So the Seven of Pentacles, in the card it's the witch practicing witchcraft, but really the Seven of Pentacles is about learning by doing. So it's like training, right? If you spend 4 or 5 hours doing something, I mean, even if you spend 1 hour every day doing something, then it shows that the passion is there and you're gonna become fucking great at the thing that you do an hour a day, 2 hours a day, holy shit, even better, you know? But this is just like making sure that you are learning by doing. So it's putting in time and gaining experience. So this is the root card and it shows the real matter at hand. So first and foremost, it's just time and practice. So then the first card that comes up is the Hierophant. So the Hierophant is about structure and tradition. So I'm looking at this and I mean personally as a universal animist elementalist, there's no book, there's no tradition, anything like that. So I'm looking at that in my specific case and I'm like, well, that's super weird. But I immediately understood that it was structure in general. So for me, I've been learning Serbian, right? And as I learn to speak this language and learn these songs, so it automatically bleeds into the Orthodox Christian songs. So I'm learning about this tradition that exists that I didn't know anything about. It's not my tradition, but learning about this tradition is the thing that's important. Learning a structure or a system is the thing that's important. Even if it's not, if you happen to follow a path that has no structure, learning some structure, even if it's a different path or whatever, I mean, that seems to be the deal. So there's that. Then I just was looking at the Hierophant because I was still struggling a little bit with this, like really, you know, and I just tried to find out the shiny part of the Hierophant. So as I go through these traditions, what is the glow? What is like the mana that I receive here? And it comes out as the Four of Swords, which is mental separation. So as you study the tradition, it separates you from the stupid bullshit that is pulling at your head otherwise, you know? It really helps separate from whatever else is going on in life. So more time, I mean, you're just more present for the practice, you know, and the training. And through that, I don't know, that's basically the reading that came out for just general spiritual path progression, you know, kind of for everybody. And it just repeatedly comes up. So after like the 5th time that it came up, I was like, okay, so this is something that is probably worth discussing.
And you were just saying like how you were talking with your friend last night and how you pulled some of these cards and they came up again. Like, what was some of the context of like what he was going through? So
he was thinking about training. Now, truthfully, so this came up because of the death of Kobe Bryant.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He didn't really know anything about Kobe Bryant. He's not a basketball guy.
Yeah.
So he started researching Kobe Bryant. And as he did this, he found out that Kobe Bryant was the kind of guy who would be at practice and he would stop to have lunch, and as soon as he was done eating, he'd go back to the gym. And he said that the people who followed him back to the gym, that was the starting lineup, because they're the people that are putting in the time. They're the people that are continuously training, and if you're doing something, you know, X number of hours a day, you're gonna be fucking great at it. And that was his mentality. So my roommate took that to heart, and he started looking at his life, and he's like, man, if I'm not doing stuff every day, you know, and there's a few things that he's trying to become really good at, and he's just like, what am I doing with my time, you know? And then I pulled out the cards and I showed him the reading, and he's like, oh yeah. And even the part about the mental separation, he was like, yeah, that's definitely the case. It mentally, having this practice and training time mentally separates you from the stupid bullshit that is happening in life. You know, all the garbage that doesn't really matter and isn't necessarily a part of anyone's spiritual path. But the structure is important, and even if it's not, if you don't follow a path that has its own structure, learning some structure from another place is apparently really important.
Yeah, I feel this right now. And especially would you like to talk over some astrology about what I think about that?
Yeah.
Well, so we just so Jupiter spends roughly about a year in each of the signs, and we just moved into Capricorn, right? And what I've been noticing, referencing this structure and repetition and dedication, is Jupiter makes everything a little bit lighter, more expansive, and a little bit more pleasurable, anything that it touches, to put it in simple terms. So we have Capricorn, which is all about work, building something brick by brick. We think about masonry and laying each individual brick, like old cathedrals that took 120, 200 years to make. Brick by brick by brick by brick by brick by brick. And if you stop, the structure's not going to be built, or if you don't do it right and you don't follow the steps, it's going to maybe crumble in 20 years, So, and the Hierophant would be very Capricornian, like our existing structures. So there's a lot of that kind of being questioned right now. And with that upliftingness that Jupiter has, for how I've been noticing this, and with the skills I'm trying to develop, it's like I have this, it's like a spiritual quest almost, to see how far I can push my body and how far I can push my mind and how far I can push absolutely everything. And I've been feeling even my body starting to adapt and to become more muscular, and my mind being more sharp and pushing past all of my perceived limits and having it be a spiritual attainment to do so, where previously it would have just felt like busy work or anything like this. And
Sure.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and with the Kobe Bryant thing, I think that is the iconic message that's coming through right now. And then especially with Capricorn too, we have limited resources with time and everything in the day, and how are you going to maximize that to its fullest potential? And Jupiter is helping to give that extra energy expansion and maximization, because you have purpose to do so, and it feels really good, and you can see the overarching success and reason for that. And also I just attended a shamanic astrology ritual a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about taking our energy back from oppressive forces and where our energy has been previously given that didn't actually fulfill us wholly. But in order to do that, we must then create a new system that we can sustain ourselves with, that's different from anything that we've ever known. So if we want to retract our power from places that we've given it away to in a way that has not been fulfilling to us, well, okay, that's great. We retracted our energy back. That's cool, but how do we actually put that into practice so then it can be sustainable and we can create more sustainable institutions? Right. That's going to take a lot of work. But again, it's that spiritual quest, because we can see what all that work is going to create and more fulfillment through life, and that takes a lot of practice.
And in that case too, in looking at established structures and then wanting to create a new structure, it's infinitely helpful to understand the structure that exists, how it's so stable, how it got to be there, to really study and understand it before trying to create a new thing. It's oh, that building's ugly. I'm going to build a different building.
But you still need to know how to lay a foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to know what makes a building stand and not fall down in a storm or something, you
Right.
know? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Wow. Totally. And I know that you've been struggling with this for a while, like trying to like put this out, or like trying to articulate
Yeah.
the
Trying to
language.
put it into words.
But I feel like we need to be practicing enough to be able to understand. And the more we implement it and practice it, the more we'll be able to understand it more, maybe.
True. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. And that is all in the Seven of Pentacles. Just some witches practicing some witchcraft.
Typical. Which, and thinking about that too, thinking about laying those new systems, we think about witchcraft and the occult as being a little bit more like mysterious and not really, what am I trying to say? It's the practice of developing paths that have been uncharted.
Right, where
Yeah.
there's no obvious tradition.
Mm-hmm.
There is no book.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think that's a pretty potent symbol as well.
And studying the traditions or the books or whatever that exist just to understand how they are so fucking stable,
Mm-hmm.
you know? That being helpful in creating the new system or the new book.
And to master that, remember the video we were watching like 2 days ago where they were talking about looking at some of the astrology one, where they're with the Picatrix?
Yeah.
And they were talking about looking at all of these like, you know, ancient rules, but then being able to like understand that, but then push it to the side because you're never going to attain mastery if you're following somebody else's rules.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Because that takes away all of the personal knowledge and wisdom and like, well, what I've found to be true. This is what everyone else says, but I've found blah, blah, blah to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. But in this case too, it looks like the studying of the other structures, even if they're bogus,
Mm-hmm.
it really provides mental separation from just other stupid shit, you know, like taxes.
Which is also kind of going with this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that has come up pretty repeatedly in the cards, I guess I'll just pull out the Hermit. There's been a wave, this has probably been happening for about 2 months, and just repeatedly, about 60% of the readings that I've done, the core message is about centering within the self. And it tends to happen when, this happens a lot in relationships, if someone gives so much energy and power to another person that they kind of forget who they are. And their awareness and their center isn't here anymore, it's like here. And it's all being projected out, you know. The thing that keeps showing up is to bring the center and the awareness back to the self. And as soon as that happens, and it's literally like an energy thing, you know, it's like a chakra breathing deal, where instead of all of the focus being not even in the head, but right about here, you know, just outside of your own head, because you're projecting and like, you know, imagining shit that isn't even true.
Seriously though.
Bringing the awareness back down into the body. And that literally can be just breathing from different parts of your torso, you know, breathing from the belly, breathing from the heart, and letting those hooks just sort of dissipate. But once that happens, and it tends to come from the shoulders too, like when you do center within yourself, it's like a weight is lifted off of your shoulders, which is really cool. But that also means that there's a lot of tension that is held up here as a side effect of projecting so much. I don't know. But relaxing the shoulders and breathing from the torso can be really helpful in bringing the center of awareness back to yourself. And then remembering, oh shit, this is who I am. You know, this is what I'm doing here. Or even having the ability to remember who you are or what you're trying to do. That can only happen when your awareness is within yourself. Self-centered, which has a negative connotation, but it shouldn't, because we should all be centered within ourselves, you know? That has been coming up for about 2 months in about 60% of the readings.
Yeah, that's really
It's just
significant.
this really big wave. And I've definitely felt it in my life repeatedly, you know?
Mine too.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting how people, I think that's a pretty good determination of like how we as a collective can be going through very similar things at the same time. Like, especially in your line of work, you have like a pretty direct access to the shifts that people are going through because they come to you to help for guidance in surfing that. And it's interesting that you were able to pick up on those patterns.
It is pretty cool to see. I mean, it's one of the cooler parts of what I do is to be able to see these waves of energy that go through everybody, or at least a lot of people, you know. But you'll see the pattern and it'll show up, and it usually happens for about a month or 2.
That's so weird.
Yeah, and then there will be a new wave that happens. Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Well, and that's why I love like when we talk about like your tarot practice and like my astrology observations, because I do think that the stars do have an effect of determining which type of wave is coming next, and it lasts for about a month or 2 months, so you have like the month transition, but then you also have with the sidereal aspect, so you have the sun, for example, we just had the tropical sun in Capricorn, but now it's in the sidereal sign of Capricorn, so it's like it's the revisitation of the Capricorn themes kind of 2 months in a row. People have different opinions on that. So it's like the month to 2 months. And with the solitude thing, that's, so Hierophant, the Hermit, that would also be pretty Capricornian, like the solo journey up the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And having to have all of your resources in yourself to have the vitality and clarity to climb that mountain.
It is pretty interesting because what I see, so I've got like a ground eye view, and like I'll see this wave, but I don't necessarily see the gravity that causes the wave to begin with.
Right, you
And
just see
that's
the
what
effects.
you can see.
Yeah.
You see it. Oh yeah, that's because this is happening,
Right.
you know? And I'm like, oh.
But I can only judge it within myself and people who are close to me. But you can see it on just a wide, like everybody coming through the door. They're like, okay, yep, we're going through that
We're
this
going
month.
through this. The good news is you're not alone.
Right, that's crazy.
And the bad news is you're gonna die.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Cool.
Or maybe that's the good news.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We don't know.
We really don't know. But I really like that, the reference to Kobe Bryant, though, with this, because I feel like he embodied that energy really well. And it's interesting that that would be coming up at this time when so many people are going through this process, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and truly, I didn't know anything about Kobe Bryant either.
I didn't really either.
Until Joe told me about his personal training style or whatever. But he came at it. I've heard this about Larry Bird too, that Larry Bird wasn't as great as he was because he was naturally talented, that he was the greatest athlete. He just did it all the time. You know, he put in countless hours, and that's why he was great. And apparently Kobe Bryant, although he was obviously a natural athlete, but that doesn't cut it in the NBA, you know, like everyone's a natural athlete, so you have to have more than that. And yeah, that it was apparently his work ethic and just like constantly practicing and getting better that got him to that point.
And use of time too.
Use of time.
Like, I didn't really know anything too much, because I'm not a sports person, but I didn't know too much about him. And I was just watching some of the videos that are going around on social media about him, and he was talking about why he would just use his helicopter all the time, because he lived in Los Angeles. The traffic gets so bad, so he'd be out training, but then he wanted to be able to pick his kids up on time from school because he wanted to use his time most effectively. So then he'd like jump in the helicopter, do his practice, then go on the helicopter, be where he needs to be in 15 minutes versus like 2 hours in LA traffic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like,
if I had a helicopter, I would be taking that thing.
yeah,
everywhere.
seriously. So serious. But
yeah. So
wrap up, important message, use your time wisely, and practice your craft.
So you can get a helicopter.
I mean, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep.